Greetings everyone, I am Rafael Caso and welcome to Aim to Thrive, wellbeing education for the construction industry where we learn life skills to move from a surviving to thriving mindset. Wellbeing empowerment through education. Stress. Stress is your body's reaction to pressure from a certain situation or event. It can be physical, mental, or emotional. We all deal with stress at some point in our lives. Maybe it's your job, a family illness, or money troubles. These are the common triggers. What can leaders do to manage stress in their workplace to ensure they meet their duty of care? My topic today is on stress management and avoiding burnout, and it is my pleasure to introduce Hayden Knibbs, a Senior Clinical Psychologist from New Zealand's leading health provider, Habit Health. Hi, Hayden, and welcome to Aim to Thrive.
Hi, Rafael. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, pleasure. We're all very eager to learn from you. Hayden, can you begin, please, with telling us a little bit about your background and your role at Habit Health?
Okay, as you said, I'm a senior clinical psychologist. I'm actually an immigrant from South Africa, so that's where my majority of my experience has come from.
Right.
But yeah, I've worked in quite a lot of different contexts: military, police, private practice, hospitals, psychiatric facilities. Really quite a lot of different contexts, seeing a lot of different ways that people function. And yeah, bringing it back to stress, sure, some really high stressful situations in those instances.
Yeah.
I've seen the consequences of it, and really do have an awareness of how it develops, what the consequences are, and what to do about it.
Yeah, certainly. And are you able to let us know a little bit about the company Habit Health? Where do they fit in the picture?
Yeah, so Habit Health, obviously here in New Zealand.
Yes.
Really smart company, looking to focus on health and wellness almost on a universal level. Myself, I'm senior psychologist there, so I assist from a psychological front, but the company itself dabbles in many different elements of health, when it comes to rehabilitation, where it comes to ACC type contracts, where it even comes here EAP, focusing on assisting workers that are going through whatever health related situations, even assisting there on legal levels, legal advice.
Yeah.
So I almost say try to envisage it as this really all-round specialist in trying to assist people on their journey of health.
Fantastic. Hayden, how would you define stress, and what are the common symptoms? What are the symptoms of chronic stress, and when do you know, when does an individual know, what are the signals to them that they may be close to burning out or facing burnout?
Yeah, you put it so nicely, actually, your definition of stress in the beginning. Really it is the body's, it is a reaction to a strenuous request from the environment.
Yes.
And that's really what stress is all about.
Yes.
Perhaps if I get a bit of an explanation in there. If you can imagine human beings as an organism, we're an organism, we engage with our world. Part of what happens is at stages, there is something that comes our way, whatever that may be, that we need to deal with rapidly. Now, when that happens, there's a bunch of physiological, psychological responses that get engaged.
Yes.
Adrenaline, cortisol, all these types of, it isn't working out exactly why, maybe not even that important. What's good to remember is everything occurs to ready your body for action. We've all heard the term go around, fight or flight, freeze, that kind of response. Yes. That's really what it's all about. But what's happening there is your body gets pumped full of chemicals that make you act. You even something so simple as digestion, your body stops digesting and pumps extra blood to your arms and your legs so that you could move faster. So it literally readies you for anything coming your way.
Great.
Now that actually is what stress does.
Yes.
That's all good and well if you think about if you're living your life and here comes a danger, you need that. Bang, you go into that phase, you escape the danger, and then you go out of the phase.
Yeah.
So even going out of the phase, there's actually a whole response that the body does as well. When this thing from the environment that required you to act is gone, the body implements a bunch of other chemicals and a bunch of other responses that create relaxation, and there we switch back off. And that's actually how we are part of how we are ideally functioning. Going into this stage to deal with whatever it is, then we rest a little bit, go into this kind of a thing.
Yeah, sure.
Now, stress, I'll invite you to consider, because of the way we live our lives, the way the world is, now you're faced with a bunch of things from the environment, challenges, whatever. Your mind, your body reacts in this way because that's how it knows. So there you react, but it's not the same as now I'm run away and it's gone. So you stay in that state. Your body creates all of those chemicals to try and calm you down. It might a little bit, but also the stress chemicals are coming. And over time, either you those relaxing physical things stop working and you just stay in stress, or they partly work and you're partly in stress. But that phase of being heightened arousal, that phase, you are not designed to remain there.
Yeah.
So if you remain there, you start to develop all of these stress symptoms. Now there, we can rattle them off, but I would almost invite you to consider it like, if you imagine what would happen to you if you were always in a state of arousal. You'll see physically, it'll be things like muscle tensions at the beginning, sore neck, sore back, tense muscles. You'll start to see things like overworking the adrenaline glands, because now obviously you're working more. You'll start to have hair loss. Well, it's one of them. The immune system gets compromised. Now, if you imagine as an organism, you need to respond to this risk. So in that moment, it's not prioritizing your immune system; it's making you go. So the immune system starts to get weakened, especially over time like that. Think about the heart. Now the heart is working too much, so you have increased blood pressure, you have increased likelihood of stroke, of heart attack, all of that type of stuff. It even goes further. You start to increase the oxygenation in the organs. Okay, essentially you wear them down quicker. So over time, actually we even see aging increases, the signs and symptoms of aging, because again, ideally, that is supposed to be a phase that we're in and then out of. Remaining there. And try to imagine it like your car. If you were driving your car at utter maxed out revs, full speed, and you just keep driving it, a race car might perform like that, but then it stops. Then there's tweaks. And if it just never stopped, it would wear out. And that's really the picture that I want to put forward with ongoing stress and the consequences of it. If I pause there, does that make sense?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, so there, if you ask the symptoms, some of those things that I've said, psychologically as well. You touched on burnout. I almost look at it as, it's related, but kind of a separate thing. Over time, your mind is quite clever as well, and it tries to stop you from experiencing this constant stress. So it kind of engages a mechanism to let you distance a little bit and almost numb and bow out. That's burnout. So you kind of get worn down from constantly being in that one state, and your mind tries to pull you away from it. There you'll have burnout. Not everybody will experience that. If you go long enough, it'll hit you. But even if you don't, you're just in that state. So either way, prolonged stress like that, never moving out of that state, really, really wears us down. It also increases anxiety if we're looking psychologically, because if you can imagine, anxiety is this energy as well. You want to be able to react, but now the world is not asking for you to react like that, but there your body engages it. You end up a bit stuck. Yeah, it's actually quite profound. I mean, some studies even show 80 to 90% of all reasons why you go to the GP can be reduced to stress. So really profound.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Hayden. That's really insightful. Employers have a duty of care for the health and safety and well-being of their employees. How can leaders better gauge their employees' stress levels to ensure that they don't burn out and suffer poor health? What can leaders, what strategies would you recommend to avoid this from happening?
Yeah, quite a difficult one. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to add, what are the indicators to an employer for them to sort of understand, hey, look, we may need to implement some strategies, like what the indicators, what do they need to be on the lookout for, do you think? Yeah,
they're probably gonna see lower performance. One might imagine, oh yeah, if they're in that state, they're gonna really be performing. But if you're constantly in that state, it's not in line with optimal performance. You're actually going to be potentially making some mistakes, taking risks, flustered, because it's stress, there's pressure. So they're going to start seeing things like that in the performance. Probably the person will report it. But I would certainly say, first point of call, if there's a line of communication, then employers can hear where the employees start to talk about the stress they're under, the pressure they're under. They at least, I would really suggest respecting that feedback loop. When somebody is mentioning how tough it is, how they want help, or just want help if I can't get to that today. There you already got a nice indication. Sure, so there's a lot on their plate. I'm asking a lot of them, because the more we get pushed a bit like that, the more that mechanism will engage. That's the environment is basically saying, here's this task coming at you, and it's asking a lot of you. So how does our body react? Okay, God, let's engage that system that makes us go quickly. Yeah, so that feedback loop, really important.
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess that would mean that it's important that an employer and leaders within a company are having regular sort of catch-ups with their team and asking them how they're going, having that opportunity to get feedback. That would be an important part of it, wouldn't it, Hayden? Do you feel?
Yeah, and to take the feedback seriously. I would say, look, what we're talking about now is really just one tiny piece of the puzzle. In truth, each corporation or each company or each business is quite unique, and for different reasons, you might have a situation where a lot of stress is occurring within employees. So it's not like one size may not fit all. There might be very helpful things to implement, but you might find a unique situation that looks different. But certainly something to consider if there is that information coming in. I mean, any problem, if you wish to solve it, you need to define it clearly. And if you have no way of even seeing it or knowing it, wow, you're going to struggle. So yeah, if you can already have that feedback loop, okay, now there you might see, everyone is talking about they can't get to that, or there's just too much work. There's something to think about there. How it's solved, okay, that's chapter 5. But certainly already listening and getting that to occur. I would say it's definitely a piece of the puzzle there.
Yeah, sure thing. What strategies can workplace leaders implement to ensure that they are, managing stress, helping their employees manage their stress, and ensuring that, from what you've described, that there is such a thing as good stress, in that, good stress meaning that people, they're alert, they can be very focused when they're under some pressure. But when does it become like a tipping point where they can sort of, they start really facing the consequences of that ongoing stress?
Yeah, beautifully put. In this, let's look at it a bit like this. That phase, that kind of alertness, really is beneficial as well. We also function like that. It is just, if it doesn't come out, you want to have periods where we are out of it. If it is prolonged or it never gets ended, that's when you get hit. Yes. So if employees consider that, sure, it might be in certain corporations, it might be ensuring that, well, really one of the most common work stress reports often comes out of workload. So really something to consider. If a workload, it's easier said than done. I'm aware of that, because an employer or a company is trying to get outcomes, that delicate dance between having employee performance optimized, profitability, but considering the employee, all of these types of things together. But if workload is too high, and if you think about it, that's a person that's got a task. The environment is asking of them something, but they don't have enough time in the day to do it. They physically can't meet the task. There you will necessitate stress, because where can they get out and relax? They might go home and try and implement a bunch of things to try and turn off, but even a whole day without any dip, you're asking a lot, you're wearing them down. So if employers consider the workload, or even implement training, let's say they have a high workload by definition of the industry or of the role or whatever, if they get some resilience training so that in those stress times, the workers themselves can adapt, create that dip, become a bit more hardy to the stress. That could be something to look at. It could be structuring it in a way that the workload is spread. It could be structuring it in a way that managers support in a unique fashion. Look, that will all really, again, depend on the actual work context. But I'll invite, if there are any corporations or whatever watching this and they think about it, I invite you to consider that process. Heightened state, relaxed state. If you put yourself in the shoes of the employee, if you see they're probably always in that heightened state, they are likely to be suffering higher levels of stress, or the prolonged exposure to that state. And if you're thinking bigger picture, you are going to burn them out. I mean, if you owned a bunch of cars and you wanted them to drive well, you would never sit there with a brick on the accelerator just letting it run. You would on occasion you drive it fast, and then you drive it slow, you service it regularly. It would be a bit like that, just to push and push and push. There's only a certain capacity that exists. You will burn it out.
Yeah, certainly. So as you know, Hayden, I'm in the construction industry. I speak with a lot of contractors, a lot of construction firms, and for a lot of them, Hayden, the workers especially, they have a survival mindset. They're trying to make it to the end of the day. They're trying to make it to the end of the week. They wake up, and for a lot of them, life's pretty stressful. They've got a lot of time, deadline pressure, lots of other things going on within the industry. What would your advice be to them to shift this mindset, what strategies, what resilience training could they be doing as individuals to shift their survival mindset to a thriving mindset, where they're actually day to day, they're implementing some ideas for themselves to make themselves more resilient towards stress? What if I were here consulting with you now and I was explaining to you, look, I'm really stressed out, I'm in that heightened alert sort of state, what would be some ideas that I could start implementing into my own life to sort of help me move to a better state of mind?
Yeah. Okay. Well, beautiful. First of all, in the construction industry, let me just first say this. Sometimes there is a view, if you're impacted by work, you're somehow weaker, or something is, you're not making it, I can make it, or we should make it, or, I will challenge that first. If you are stressed, that means you as a human being have an optimally functional physiology and psychology. Your body is working well. As a machine, let's view it like that. Let's say you as this being, you are designed to engage so that you can function under stress. That activation, that phase where your body is ready for action. So for me, that's an indication of strength. Now, if your environment's asking you to function like that constantly, it cannot be. It's the same as putting sugar in your petrol tank every day. The car will eventually seize. That's not an indication that there's something wrong with the car. It's an inevitability. It will, of course, work like that. So let us first just understand what we are. And that is, you are actually a really optimal human. You have this brilliant system in you that caters for challenges in the environment. Bang, it's engaged. But if you just leave it engaged, then it's gonna wear down. Simple as that. In addition to that, okay, so now the work environment, let's say that it is asking a hell of a lot of you. It pushes you. It puts a lot of workload. It puts a lot of pressure. There's deadlines. There's a lot going on. Now here, there's lots of ways to look at this. The first point of call, if we really understand that our body is in this state, we want to try and introduce a time where our body is not in that state. Now, if we can keep work, and home, already there we have a period of time where we are not in that state. This won't be necessarily sufficient, and I would also suggest that people then reach out to experts like an EAP program where they can also assist them with this. But just as a basic look, if you keep home and work, while you're at home, you can disengage from that mechanism. That's easier said than done. So let's zoom in a little bit. Someone can just say, oh, just keep working, but you can't. That context, work context, when you're at work, you are experiencing everything that's there. When you go home, you can do a bunch of things to close off that context and open up the home one. If you separate those contexts while you're at home, you'll be out of that phase and you won't experience stress and you'll recharge. Now it's important, if you can, to do whatever you do practically that lets work stay at work. So let's say you had a bunch, you still had to complete the one part of the project, but you weren't sure when you got back to work tomorrow if you should start at this area or that area. It would be to make something that made it very clear, you know exactly when to start. You know exactly what to do when you add, even if it's writing a list and sticking it on the wall, putting whatever. So that when you leave, there's nothing that you have to hold in your mind about that context. You can close it. If you go home and, I still have to phone my boss, I needed to make sure that I told him this. Now at home, you've got a bunch of stuff that is work stuff that you're busy doing at home. So either do it all or make a system that allows you to leave it, knowing that when you return, it will clearly be there waiting for you. So making a list, doing whatever. then your mind doesn't have to hold it. It's held there for you at work. Or you do it and you close it. Then you get home and you open the new context at home. This one is going to now, I'm not sure if many people will like to do this, but part of being in that state, that aroused state, that stress kind of state, that performance state, part of it's physiological. So closing it off, if you do something that burns all of that adrenaline, let's say you exercise or do something like that, that assists to close off that state. That's on the one level. On the other level, if you are cognizant, if you're aware of, oh, it's the different state, I'm getting there, there you can also, you can do those smart things, close off the context, write down stuff, there it stays at work. The other level is emotional. There's an emotional component. You as a human being all have got emotional experiences. So there, if you express what your experience was of that context, your mind processes it and closes it. So if you come home, you do some sort of exercise, burn a bit of that stuff, you've done whatever that needs to do to close off work, now you talk a little bit to somebody about what work was. Yeah, it was frustrating, it was boring, whatever it was. Your mind processes it and closes it. Then you can open up your new context of home. What do I want to do tonight? No, I actually just, I want to relax, spend time with the kids, speak to my partner, whatever. There you are opening up that new context. Maybe one final one, if it's quite a lot, one can do, if you want to, but I give you the logic, those kind of meditation, mindfulness, yoga, this type of stuff, what that does is get you to focus for the moment on the moment. So basically it closes off that context, because if your mind is all at work, you're opening those two contexts and you're creating stress. So it's to close it off. If you don't close it off, this is going to sound strange, but let me explain. If you don't close it off, you make stress happen, and this is how you do it. If you're at home and you're focused on work, you're thinking about what you're supposed to do, you haven't completed that project, whatever, you are actually in a context of work. That's where your mind is, but your body is not at work. Because your body is not at work, you actually can't implement any change in work. Nothing you do right now can affect work because you're not there. If you're there, you can do it. So you can affect change, whether it's good or bad or whatever, you can do it. If you are stuck thinking about it and processing it while you can't do anything about it, you are actually powerless. In fact, you make it for a fact that you're powerless because you can't affect change. So essentially there, you have an environment, you are busy functioning in work, thinking about work. You are not at work. You're forcing powerlessness there. The environment then is asking of you that you cannot even deal with it. You literally will engage stress and you'll be stuck in it. So close off those two contexts is a really good way. So just try and think of that understanding and then do what you can to close off work, open up home. That will already create a big change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what you're describing, Hayden, is a lot of self-awareness, isn't it? Like a person needs to be very self-aware of, to be able to stop themselves when they're feeling a particular emotion and be aware of that emotion. And then to almost, because they're aware of it, almost from there to implement their own ideas to relieve them of that pressures or of that stressful continuation of that stressful emotion. So from what you're describing to me, it seems like you need to help yourself to have quite an alertness to your own state, which does take some people, that doesn't come naturally, does it? You know, where they're not aware of what they're actually feeling. So I guess part of that resilience training that you described earlier would be to train yourself to be aware of your emotions so that you can then put like a plan in place for yourself. Yeah. Would that be a fair way to sort of describe that? Or,
I want to, but I want to add even to that and
yes.
say, yes, that awareness certainly a piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
But if you have the awareness of those phases, like what we're talking about now,
yes,
then you know, okay, so that's how this organism works. I get in this arousal phase, I can get in this resting phase.
yes,
Okay, so I've gone to work, I'm probably out of the arousal phase. So how do I turn it off? Yes, if you're sharing with somebody and you're sharing, oh, the emotions is what it felt like, that couldn't make the emotional turn off go quicker, fine. And yes, resilience training, things like this can assist there, fine. But if not, let me say this, if you can, use people in your environment to help you. Don't do it alone. Just talk to somebody, even if you just walk them through what physically happened in your day. You might think it's boring as hell, but if you sit there and you say, okay, yeah, went to work, we went on site, I did this, we actually finished that wall, or whatever, we moved this thing over there, we built this, or we actually changed pace, the weather ruined it, we ended up doing something completely different. Just there you walk somebody through. That allows your mind to process it and put it aside. If somebody could just listen to that even, bang, you've closed it off. So I like what you've said, but I almost want to say, don't do it alone. If you do it with someone and they're just hearing you, they might say to you, let's say you say, oh, we finally finished that whole project today. You don't even know what the emotion is, but they might go, oh my God, well done. And that feeling, there your mind processed that emotion already. So it can happen organically, it doesn't always, but I will say a really nice tip. Try not to just do it alone. Do it with somebody else, and you actually already engage parts of how our mind works. It'll start happening automatically behind the scenes.
Yeah, that makes.
Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's that's all part of wellness as well, isn't it? Like the connectivity that you have with others, people listening, being able to express yourself, and sharing in your day as a process to unwind and to make yourself more at ease.
Your whānau, your friends, and if really EAP services, that is a perfect way. Use that. Let it unwind a little bit. There can even be other game, but yeah, there's doing it alone really increases the challenge.
Fantastic. My final question, Hayden, just on the EAP services, are you able to explain what they are to listeners that don't know what they are, just so they have a better more clarity of what EAP stands for, please?
Yeah, so that's kind of like an employee wellness, or really an all-round employee support service that gets some companies can contract with Habit Health,
yes.
And there is counselors that are available depending on what package the company has purchased.
Sure.
There's counselors. There's actually other services in there. There's even legal advice and assistance, but there one can call an outside party and one can get assistance in that way. Yeah.
Oh, no. Hayden, I really appreciate your time. What is it? It's going into the early afternoon. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. And I'll make sure that all the details for people to contact Habit Health are underneath the video link.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Hayden. Yeah. Nice to have spoken to you. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. Cheers.